welcome to the Big 12 Mafia Show. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown. With me are a bunch of people. I should just say that tonight. But we'll do introductions so everybody knows who's here having fun. We have Wild Ute, obviously, Immaculate View, Vince from Garnet and Old. How you doing, Vince?
I'm doing fantastic. It's cold here in Florida.
Really? Well, it's snowing here, so I
It's
think
not that
that's
cold.
only fair.
It's not that cold.
Okay, all right. And then Moen is hanging out in his basement with who's the guest rocker there at your house tonight, Moen?
This is my jungle room.
Okay.
You see this, and I got my jungle shirt on. So, various wild game that I've shot throughout the years. I keep down there in all my world travels. So,
oh jeez.
Okay, I guess that works for us. Obviously, we want to welcome everybody here on a Friday night to be on our show. We appreciate the audience we've built on Friday nights. It's really important, and I want everybody to know we recognize you. And everything we cover is for your edification. And I hope you have some fun tonight. Tell your friends and neighbors. Let your cousins know that Big 12 Mafia show's on because we need more people. I want to encourage everybody to subscribe to the channel and then on YouTube, and then also follow us all on Twitter. And then lastly, turn on your notifications on Twitter and on YouTube so you know when our shows are going to be popping up. So we're going to lean a little heavy Florida State here for probably the first hour of the show. So if you're here for Florida State realignment ACC news, buckle up. That's what we're going to be doing here first. Before we jump into anything, I'm going to give Ute, and I'll give all you guys a chance to kind of say hi and what you're thinking going into this college football playoff championship weekend.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the weekend here. It's January 5th, right here, Friday night. Let's get this thing started. So I'm really excited for the college football playoff coming up on Monday. So we'll talk a lot about that in the future. A lot what's going on with Florida State right now. So stoked to have a conversation around it. Welcome in, y'all.
Excellent. How about you, Immaculate?
I think we got a good one. I mean, I'm looking forward to kind of looking into the future of Florida State, not just past year, but also in terms of even after this game ends, this isn't over. We have just coming up on Wednesday, the convention is starting. So looking forward to maybe talking about that, seeing what maybe our new friends here might have to say about that. But we've got a lot going on here in the next week or so.
Absolutely right. Moen.
you know me, it's weekend every day of the week. So,
Are we doing a
just
drinking
down here.
game tonight, Moen?
Ooh.
No, because
Okay.
no, that would be a bad interaction.
Okay. We don't want that.
Maybe
Don't want
later
that.
I'll take off my shirt and get on the bearskin rug for you guys.
Oh
but,
my
you
God.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Is that
I didn't
after
sign
the
up for
drinking or
that.
before it?
But there's no drinking. It'll be sober bear rug.
Pure sober.
Okay. All right. And then Vince, tell us what's going on in your part of the world before we get into details on Florida State.
I thought football was over. Is there another game that's going to get played?
Oh,
Whoa.
boo.
No,
That's
no,
Huskies,
really.
baby, right here. Huskies.
I'm actually rooting for them. I would love to see them win it, and so I'm gonna watch that game and root for them for sure. And it is the weekend, and I just tore down the Christmas lights outside and putting all that away. So back to the grind.
Hey,
Well,
Moen, he fits right in with the Big Ten. He's already rooting against Michigan.
Yeah,
there we
he
go.
knows the score.
In fact, yeah, let's just jump into it right now and we can talk about that. So Florida State, there's legal stuff that came out either yesterday or today or both from the Florida AG. We'll get to that article when Danielle's here. But just everybody's first blush attempts and looks at the way things are being treated in the PR realm for Florida State and the ACC. And you guys' opinion, who's actually winning that opinion game out in the public relations area?
It's funny, if you ask any of the ACC brethren that we have, everybody's tired of Florida State's whining, right?
Right.
So they're not really on board with it. But I would say that the majority of the opinion that's outside of the conference seems to be very positive.
Well, and do you think the media coverage coming from ESPN, has it changed? Because it was definitely negative Florida State there for a while, and then Florida State went out and kind of didn't put their best foot forward with their team in the bowl game. So
Mhm.
how does I'm curious about that. What do you think? You were in France, you weren't here live for a lot of that stuff that happened, but when you got back, what's your perception about the coverage that ESPN is giving to Florida State now?
Yeah, I think that the coverage is primarily negative still, negative bent and everything with like the whole playoff thing and hush your mouth, Florida State. How dare you keep crying after a couple weeks here? And that's BS, really. And I think that the bad blood is persisting amongst ESPN and Florida State. I don't think that's gotten any better at all. The overall narrative, though, guys, I mean, the narrative is the ACC is done. That's the narrative, and everybody knows it. That's what everyone's talking about. That's what everyone's seeing. It's so obvious. The ACC's done, and it's actually being socialized now and discussed more and more. And the reality is going to be happening here pretty soon. And Florida State's going to be that seminal team that's leaving.
Immaculate. I think you disagree a little with that, right?
I've thought that the whole thing about Florida State here from the get-go is all been about the ACC and very little about the CFP and all that, because that's changing next year. So for me, seeing all the fight and rigmarole over it, it doesn't really change or sway me at all. I think Florida State's looking great in terms of their relationship with the ACC and ESPN. Some of the things that they've dropped and told us about, we haven't known this whole time. So until I see ESPN or ACC come out with something even close or equivalent to that, FSU is definitely winning this one right now.
Moen, you keep the finger on the heartbeat of the Big Ten, and we know that people that are up there. What are you hearing any more about Miami? Miami and Clemson, it's interesting to me that yesterday the narrative started to change. And we did this on your show last night, Vince, where we were talking about how Miami and Clemson are trying to now angle to get some of that attention. I'm curious, Moen, are you hearing any more? Because if those other two left, the ACC would be in a big bind.
Yeah, I don't think either of them are going to leave until the Florida State situation is settled. They want to see how much it's going to cost them. If Florida State's willing to fight and get it down to 0, that would be their preference. But otherwise, they need to know the figures so that they can fundraise to get out of it as well. I have not heard anything more on Miami or Clemson. The only thing people are talking about is Florida State.
Does that surprise you, Vince?
No, not at all. And I just want to backtrack a little bit to the ESPN thing, and what you're getting from ESPN in terms of negativity has very little to do with the conference stuff. It's more about the team and the team, playing bad in the bowl game or whatever. I think ESPN has kind of gotten word that they should not vocalize things about the legal case, at least other than superficial stuff. So, and that's good, right? That's good. And they're keeping their mouth closed. So, but as far as Clemson and Miami are concerned, we have heard some rumblings that Clemson is starting to mobilize a little bit. But I haven't heard that about Miami at all. Florida State is going to be the one to blaze the path, and people are waiting. You're right. People are waiting to find out how much it's going to cost to get out. And depending on what that hurdle is, you're either going to make that hurdle, or if you're some schools, you're not going to make that hurdle.
Very fair. Immaculate, we got a question for you from the Big 12 Mafia comment section. Immaculate, what are your thoughts on my last comment, and ask everybody the question?
So I'm reading it right now.
Sorry, I grabbed the wrong argument. I picked the wrong tweet or message. Sorry about that. It says, panel, is there really any proof in Florida State that the ACC breached their meteorite
Meteorites. Yeah, meteorites.
contract by paying
That's
every
awesome.
team the same amount of money, or is that hard to prove? There you go. Try that one.
I don't know if that's even part of it. I would say the biggest breach, in my opinion, would have been whatever promises they made back when they signed that first expansion. Because remember, that's when Notre Dame joined and when they started the ACC network. So the best arguments I've seen is that there were some promises made in order to get them to sign on. And the ACC network numbers have not come anywhere near those. So if we're talking about breaching the contract, that might be it, as far as maybe him putting in that option for ESPN to push him back another 4 years without having any votes by the president. That might be very much. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't be going to these depths, these lengths, if there wasn't some type of breach there. I think FSU has definitely proved that there is probably more than just smoke to this.
Vince, you posted, and I'm sorry, I don't have the slide, where you listed the 7 things that they were going to use to get out of this contract. Does any of the information you came with on that relate to this comment?
Yeah, I think breaching is a tough word because, when we think of breaching the contract, are you talking about breaching from a financial standpoint? I mean, all the teams were paid the amount of money that the conference had to give.
Mhm.
Right. But that's not what the breach is about. The breach would be about acting in bad faith. That's the breach of the contract. So it's not about necessarily paying what was in the contract. It's about not doing what was expected of the party that you expect to go to bat for your team or to go to bat for your school. And then subsequently allowing the media partner just carte blanche to decide, whether they want to continue on with this or not, and there being no consideration for the schools as part of that change to the deal.
Okay. Before I move on to the next comment, did you want to comment on this section?
Yeah, I mean, as far as breach of contract, because everyone's getting paid the same amount, I don't think there's much there. I don't think that's probably where the legal ground's going to be fought at all. I mean, and plus, like with my point of view might be a little bit different here. There's a lot of contracts that might have a kicker with one party having the ability to extend out. So I don't think that's necessarily out of the norm either. I think where Florida State might go with this, though, with the addition of SMU, Cal, and Stanford, they're staunchly opposed to that. And they can make possibly a legal argument about, a lower revenue payout in the future, or some way that they are diluted in some way, shape, form, or manner because of the additions when they were completely opposed to it. I think that's maybe a better legal case than just saying, hey, everyone's getting paid equal, we're bringing more value to the table. They knew that up front. Florida State knew that up front. That's not new information. So I don't see that really being much legal ground case.
Okay. Let's get some shout outs while we're here. Oh, we got a super chat. Let's go to that first. Cleveland Rocks gives us $5 super chat. He says, it appears that FSU is doing all the dirty work and many in the ACC get to reap all the benefits. No fair. Also, congrats, Moen. Will Howard is going to OSU. Is that confirmed?
That is confirmed, and Jack Sawyer is coming back for his senior year.
Wow. That is big for Ohio State.
We've got a lot of defensive guys coming back. We're making a championship push next year.
There we go. Vince, what do you think about this idea that FSU's doing all the trailblazing?
I'm okay with it. I think Florida State is the team to do it. I mean, what other team is going to do it? Now, there were some teams that were in the Magnificent Seven that were talking about, is this deal ironclad or is it not? But really, the whole point of this is Florida State and other higher brands in the conference are not getting a fair shake when it comes to the brand, like to the eyeballs.
Okay.
And so I think there's only a couple schools that could make that argument.
Yeah, Clemson and Florida State are the only two. that can really, just from eyeballs, from attention,
right. And
from
so
media stuff.
Clemson is, I don't know, they're pretty quiet in general. And Florida State just seemed to be the right team to do it, I guess. I don't, whether it's fair or not, it doesn't matter whether it's fair or not. I mean, the whole deal's not fair. So it just needs to get done. And Florida State was willing to bark about it.
I think they'll reap the rewards. Let's get some shout outs to everybody who came early. Caden's dad was first in the house. There you go. First things first. Thanks, Summit Hawk, for the gift subscription. Hey, Moen, why don't you tell everybody what those gift subscriptions are?
Yeah, if you just go down to the cash sign in the bottom right, you have the option to gift memberships to the community. If you're looking to grab one of those memberships, when that pops up in the chat, just click it and grab that membership. You can also do it through the member function by going to the member section and selecting gifting options and making sure you have those turned on. You should do that anytime you go to any community on YouTube. You can get gifted a membership by doing that. So I would recommend that you go to the Big 12 Mafia homepage, select join, go to the 3 little dots that pop up, select gift options, opt in on all, and you should be set.
And we appreciate everybody that has given gift subscriptions over this holiday season. And then we're very grateful for those that have become new members of Big 12 Mafia and the family that we're putting together here, which is just getting better and better, by the way. Timothy Green, hello. He says, it's always a very informative and interesting show to keep up the good work. So that's a shout out to you guys. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Timothy.
BR says, hey, Jan Hulk, all the way from Slovakia. He and I talked on Twitter today. He's asked some really good questions. That's what I said, right?
We have a Slovenian asking about realignment questions.
You called him a Slovakian, and he's actually a Slovenian.
Oh, sorry. Slovenia. I'm sorry. Jan knows me. He knows I'm not slighting him. Another super chat comes in. Chris Hughes gives us $5. He says, why was Jim Phillips' contract extended and not fired? Should have gone out and hired ass kicker like Sankey, in my opinion. Yeah,
I can answer this. Answer this.
I'll let you answer. Let me give my answer.
Because they were afraid the Big Ten was going to take him, and the Big Ten had no intention of taking him, and they gave him a new contract.
Well, you're too serious, Mo. And I was going to do a snarky answer. Now I can't really say what I was going to say.
Go ahead, Bomber. Say it. Get it out.
I was just going to say because George Klyavkov was already gone.
Oh, you beat me to the punch.
Oh, that's awesome. Were you really going to say that?
Yeah, I was.
Jeez. I'm sorry.
What do you got, Vince?
I was going to say, I mean, where is he going to go? Who's going to want that job?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's going to want the commissioner of the ACC? The train's already out of the station, right? An ass kicker like Sankey. I mean, there's nothing. I don't have any problem with Jim Phillips. He came into a sinking ship and handcuffed in a lot of ways. So he may be a very intelligent guy. He may be a mover and a shaker. I don't know. But when you're in a straitjacket, what can you do?
Couldn't the same argument be made, though, for George Klyavkov, too?
Absolutely.
I think it's word for word. Those two guys are identical, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think it's any different.
The only difference is Yormark. Yormark was in a similar position, and he made moves, right? And Phillips and George K, sat on their hands. And that's why we find ourselves in these situations. But Yormark was the mover and shaker. So really, Yormark would have been the man for the job rather than Sankey to kind of make the ACC grow again, I guess.
We were concerned in Big 12 land, this is before the Pac-12 came over, that George Patini's job actually would have gone to Yormark. That would have been frightening for Big 12 people. So anyway, let's get some more hellos out of the way. Conundrum, we're going to touch on this conundrum. Florida AG wants total ESPN paperwork disclosure. I've got that article pulled up. We're going to do that after I finish our hellos and comments here at the beginning. Glenn Lumen, all the way from the Philippines. Good to see you, Glenn. Caden's dad has 2 comments I'm not sure we're going to get to tonight, but I wanted to read them because I think they are news and it's current. He says, with SMU getting a reduced college football share, this came out in a Ross Dellinger article this morning. Will this cost the other members? In other words, do they take their money away and to subsidize SMU? SMU gave up their ESPN media deal. These are great questions you put here, Caden. You got another one that said with SMU. Oh, it's the same comment. I'm not sure we're going to have time to talk about it tonight. If we might get it at the end of the show, but definitely next week, we're going to have a whole show on this because even people on the panel disagree on what that Ross Dellinger article actually said. Immaculate and I didn't agree on where that was maybe going or how it should have been read. And I think we need more time to talk about it than just to cover it quickly as a news item and move on. So I've got it bookmarked. We'll definitely talk about it next week. And maybe even on Mowing After Dark, you guys can cover it this weekend.
Maybe we can do
All
that.
right. Fantastic. Let's see here. Don in Kansas. Another one of our members are here. Sorry, I'm getting to these hellos really late because we jumped right into the show. Big Lubbock says hello. Randy Taylor's not a member yet. What are you going to do about that, Randy? Come on. Mowing doing backflips. That's what they want to see.
On a bear rug.
Well, yeah. Yeah, there's lots of things I'd like to see, and none of them are going to happen. So
Okay. Let's see here. Sergeant Pickles says afternoon. All right, Pickles, let's do this. I've represented for 10 days now. Let's get this done this weekend.
Wait till you see one of Sergeant Pickles' comments coming up. It's going to surprise you.
We'll see. I'll try to get to it here. This is how we start the show, to get as many of these in as we can. Conundrum says, sorry, but no bidding war for FSU between the SEC and the Big Ten. I know during the summer we had discussions, at least on our shows, that there could be a tug between the SEC and the Big Ten for Florida State. I'm not sure where this no bidding war came out. Did the SEC come out and say definitely not, they're not moving?
No, the opposite direction.
Okay.
There's talk that there is a bidding war. That's one of the things that Dodd, I think, was saying in his article or something.
Okay.
Personally, I think it's a little too late. Like, yeah, they should have, and they didn't do it in time. Now it's too late.
Okay. Anybody want to add anything to that?
I've got a question for Vince, that speaks of this too. So Vince, so the SEC and the Big, they're making annual media distributions in the 70 to 80 range, right? 80 million. What do you think, if you had to put a ballpark number on it, FSU would be worth to one of those conferences?
I believe that if you're asking wherever they go, are they going to be a full share immediately when they go in? I'd say yes, because I think what they bring in terms of viewers. Now, it's going to be worth more to the Big Ten. There's no doubt.
Right.
Florida State will be worth more to the Big Ten than it would to the SEC. And if you're asking dollar amount, I don't really know how to calculate that. But I would talk about it more in terms of, when you're bringing in new teams and people are not getting full shares, they're getting half shares for a year or whatever that case is. I don't think that's going to be the case for Florida State. Either way.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. I didn't know if you'd heard anything as far as like evaluation on the Noles or the like, because it makes sense that the Big Ten would want to pursue the Noles and pay a full share in the SEC, since they're already in the state of Florida. It might be a little bit different story there. So I was curious.
Yeah. Going back to the question about the bidding war, the SEC couldn't be in a bidding war until it was obvious that Florida State is available, right? Because that's not something that you're going to bring up, because ESPN is the partner for both leagues, right? And so ESPN, and I said this on our show last night, the SEC, I think, is perfectly content to stay where they are. I don't think they want to add more teams now, unless
Targets
the ACC
of opportunity.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
I think it's targets of opportunity. If schools fell to them, then
if schools fell to them, right, and also if it was really looking like the Big is going to happen, and getting into the Southeast, then you're looking at possibly a defensive move, which is really you're forcing the issue there. And as a university, who wants to be someone's backup plan? I mean, nobody wants to be that.
Okay, excellent, good job. Great question, Ute. Let's see here. So Sergeant Pickles says championship game Monday, Twins due Thursday. What a week! Oh my gosh, Sergeant Pickles, I'm so excited for you, brother. We'll keep
There it is. Yeah.
We'll keep you your wife in our prayers, and certainly wish everything good for you and your family. Keep us posted. Send me a DM when it happens, and we will blow it out to the world, brother. You're a valued member of the family here, and I really appreciate all you've done for us. Randy Taylor is in the house. My gosh, we got over 200 comments. Our Webb is here. He says the ESPN 2027 fiasco with the ACC has totally turned the narrative. I think everybody agrees with that, right? Does anybody disagree with that?
Oh, that's a massive, massive piece of information. It changed the narrative. It's not changing the fact that this was going to happen regardless, but it just speeds us up, right? It speeds up the timeline because Florida State's not looking to leave in 3 years now. It's going to happen, within the next year, 2 years. It's not multiple years away because of that qualifier, 2027.
Yeah,
Anybody else?
Yeah, we knew the 2036 thing it just wasn't going to make it that far, whether it be because these are human beings who aren't going to want to deal with that pressure for 13 years or more, or just for legal reasons. But when this came out, that basically made it pretty much impossible for anyone to deny that. It's fine when there's no evidence. That's fine. People can have different opinion. But right now with this what we've just learned about this new date, the new potential cutoff time, it's a huge game changer. I mean, what's it do? It might cut off more than half of that cost of getting out. And then when you take that off and then you settle from that point, where does that take you down to? I mean, the math gets pretty serious when you go from 36 to 27 and, it's 23, 24 now. That's not that far away.
Moen wasn't in his chair. Do you want to say anything, Moen? Hey, Moen.
I had to go let my hunting hound out. He would not stop bothering me.
Did you want to add anything to that comment?
Yeah, I didn't hear the comment because I was letting my ferocious.
Okay, don't worry about it then. We'll move on.
We're good.
So.
I just want to let there's an announcement there at the bottom of the screen, Pickles, just for you, just in case you were looking for additions.
Oh my goodness! You got to be kidding me.
All right, move on to further comments on the show.
I made him a little joke because he was saying that his wife is making him name his kid Kalen over after the head coach, and I said, if you want to win that one, tell her that the other one has to be named DeBoer. But we could split in the middle and call it the Bomber.
Hey, there you go.
Hey, there
I'll take that. Our Webb, thank you very much for your loyalty, and you've been a great person on our show. We really appreciate all you've done for us. Two Master, I have not seen you for a while. Where have you been? This is the only show you really need to watch, right?
Welcome in.
I know there's others that you watch, one specifically, but I think we're a better show.
Hey, Bomber, I do have a question about the 2027.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
The contract extension qualifier here that ESPN has for the contract. So, what would do you think that ESPN would actually agree on extending out the contract if nothing like this was happening? If there's no shakeup of Florida State or anybody else, do you think they would actually choose to pay that same amount going forward after 2027, or do you think that they would actually try to renegotiate the contract? So say there's no indication anyone's leaving, would they actually extend that sucker past 2027?
I don't think so. If Florida State or if any of the three cornerstone, even UNC or Virginia, if they leave, I don't think they do.
What do you think, Vince? Yeah.
I think ESPN is in no rush to spend any more money. Yeah. And that clause in there, which basically is saying ESPN has the right in the year 2027 to decide whether it's going to continue a relationship with the conference in terms of broadcasting the media rights or not. And so really, and somebody asked in the chat here, because they're confused about this. Basically what it's saying is there is no guaranteed financial agreement as far as dollars are concerned to the conference past that year, because that's the point where ESPN gets to decide whether they want to shut it down or not. And I don't think, like I said, I don't think ESPN is looking to spend more money. I think they're looking to tighten their belts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually, if you think about it, it's actually a fortuitous thing that 2027 date is there and there is no agreement in place, because say ESPN was starting to think about it now, it's very obvious that teams are not happy, schools are not happy, and they want to get out. That would push me as a media partner to say, I'm not putting any more money into this till this gets straightened out. And so I don't think they were in any rush, which is why it got, extended. You unilaterally extended that date. I don't think ESPN's in any rush to do anything.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just want to say Anthony in chat was a little confused by this. ESPN cannot go give a sweetheart deal for the SEC to take Florida State, Miami, anybody from the ACC. Since they're both the exclusive media partner, ESPN is the exclusive media partner for 90% of the SEC and 90% of the ACC. Moving one property to another property is market allocation. It'd be just like if you're Krispy Kreme Donuts and Dunkin' Donuts and saying, okay, well, we won't open any stores on the West Coast. You guys don't open any stores in Texas. It's market allocation. You can't do that. That's a federally antitrust crime. So ESPN can't cut a sweetheart deal to say, hey, we'll let these guys go to the SEC cheaper than we would the Big Ten. It's got to be the same price.
There would be a massive payout to the ACC for that to happen. If they were going to agree to that, there would be a massive payout to that league, because you're basically having the media partner play a shell game with the teams, and the SEC would get the higher benefit, and the ACC would be, standing there holding the cards. So, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Really quick, I'm going to do the mini video to show everybody how to become a member of the Big 12 Mafia family. It's real simple. Just follow this process, and you also will be able to have your names in special colors, and we try to read those comments first.
Become a member of Big 12 Mafia by going to our homepage and hitting the join button located next to the subscribe button in the upper right corner. There are several membership levels to choose from.
Okay, so Two Master has a comment here. FSU is the Colorado, meaning they would be the ones that would sort of break the logjam and be the first ones out, and in my opinion, would be rewarded by being the first one out. That's just my opinion. Does anybody disagree with that or want to add anything to that comment?
Now your nails to Masta. FSU is the Colorado. And now, Bomber, what do you think they would be rewarded? What about leaving first do you think would be advantageous for the Noles?
I think whichever network maybe only one network, the BTN, I think they would give them preferred scheduling. I think they would have some advantages, more home games every season or something, that they would basically pat them on the head and say, this is great. We appreciate you being here. But I mean, I'm not saying I'm right. That's just my opinion. Do you guys can you think of anything else they could do?
I'm thinking the same thing that Colorado got. They had incentives, right? A few million incentives they had for coming over to the Big 12.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Vince, you already made mention that these FSU is going to be a full member. No doubt about it. Like they're not going to be 80, 90%. They're going to be a full member, but anybody that's trailing them outside of North Carolina might be taking a revenue reduction. If you're Miami, it might be 50, 70% revenue share, but the Noles are going to get 100%.
Yeah, the only other thing that I think could possibly be a perk is maybe the network or the conference helps with travel costs.
Oh, like they gave subsidy to Oregon and Washington, interest-free loan to cover travel for a while.
Yeah, and more so for the other sports, right? Football is gonna be fine, but when you have your beach volleyball team having to cross country to play USC, um, that's a lot of dollars.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think Florida State will probably get full price. Anyone else coming in is probably getting the Oregon Washington price.
Could be. We got a super chat here from Becky. Go Huskies.
Becky.
Good to have you here, Becky. Obviously, we do go Huskies. At least in my house, we're Huskies. So, thank you very much for your super chat. She says, "Hey guys, what about Wake Forest?" Just
Oh
kidding.
gosh. Yeah, I
Go
mean,
Huskies. Does somebody want to
If-
answer why? Tell everybody
Yeah.
why that's a joke.
If Washington doesn't win, we're giving Wake Forest a spot in the Big Ten.
seriously, huh?
That's fantastic. I love that.
Lots of growth potential there. Nowhere to go but up.
All right, we're getting down here. I'm sorry, guys. I can't get to everybody. Here's a funny comment. BR says, maybe it's time to wash that shirt, Bomber. I've only probably worn it for, 20 hours this week. That's not very long.
You can't
Not
wash it until after the game. Yeah, that's
Can't
bad
wash it
luck.
until after the game. Anthony Manzano says, would Miami and Florida State be a package deal to either the Big Ten or the SEC, or it's one or the other for either conference?
Florida State's
Nope.
completely on their own. Like whoever else comes with them, that's almost like a separate deal. They could take Florida State on their own if they truly want to. I mean, I think it's easier to schedule with 19 than it was to schedule with 11 back when they got Penn State and everyone was like, this is a problem. It's still a problem, but it's not as bad of a problem because you've got so many more teams to work around with schedules. That's like for Olympic sports and basketball and things.
There's no package deals. There's no dancing partners that I've heard of. I think the only thing that could possibly happen is if the Big Ten knew that they could get Florida State and UNC, but UNC is after the fact, right? In most cases, they have other stuff to deal with from a state politics thing. So Florida State it will be going at this all by themselves. And there's no package deal.
Okay.
I'm wondering from the big standpoint here. Okay, so if you're looking at Florida State, there's no smoke around it being a package deal, but I'm thinking to myself, like geographically, it makes sense to have a package deal at some point. So maybe phase one, Florida State, and phase two is Miami in the grand plan of it. I think those two actually make sense to go together. I mentioned that weeks ago that Miami and Florida State could be two ads for the Big Ten. I think they both fit. Notre Dame possibly in Florida State, but I think that eventually you're going to add another team to get to 20. I think the Big Ten's going to 20 teams and probably stopping at 20. I mean, we've talked with Bob Thompson about that too, and he's mentioned that 20 is probably that max amount for a conference based on the media rights agreement. So I think that 20 is probably your number, and something within the geography of Florida State, like a Miami or possibly Clemson.
Say it.
Yeah,
Say Georgia Tech. Say Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech.
There we go. All right. I was just about to say the other ad. I think that they'd probably want to. There's a lot of other reasons to add someone down there, but it's not attached to FSU. FSU is going to get their exit price from the ACC all on their own. That's going to be, but that's also precedent for others. So I think Florida State already knows where they're going, or they wouldn't be doing this. So that's a one-team deal. From there, it's going to be who else wants to come with once we have that price. If it's a high price, maybe only Clemson could do it. Maybe Miami could do it. If it's a low price, this whole story gets blown wide open as everyone else is like, wait, we're kind of in if that's the price. I mean, if it's, $50 to $100 million, that's going to make a whole lot more other options available. So at that point in time, when you look, you say, what would be the best option for the Big Ten? on its own, just as a ad. And if it is coming in at a small price or a large price or whatever.
David Floyd, you missed it a little bit earlier. We mentioned that SMU article from Ross Dellinger. If we have time later tonight at the end of the show, we'll talk about that. But tonight we're focusing on the college football playoff and Florida State ACC news. So, but watch, make sure you subscribed to this channel, and then make sure you're following us on Twitter, because a show might be going on Sunday that would cover that. And definitely next week, I'm going to do a whole show around that article, because I think it brings up a lot of good questions. So I don't want you to think that we didn't catch that in the news. It's actually a pretty big deal, but these other things sort of take precedence. Let's see here. I just got a message from Danielle. She'll be on with us in 5 minutes. And so I'm really excited to have her show up. Let's see here. Did I miss a super chat? Let's see. No, that one's also SMU.
While you're pulling that up, Bomber, I've got to opine here and just provide some thoughts.
Ahead.
So this SMU likely not getting a full P5 payout is so funny and ironic to me. Sorry, guys. I know that's jerk take and everything, but SMU paid their way into the ACC. Their boosters are funding their program for 9 years. They're only expecting, a small amount of money. They're not going to get that. They're going to get more. They're going to get less money being in the ACC for 9 years than they'd make in the American Conference, right? How ironic is that? And the ACC is likely to bust up too. It's kind of a sick joke on those guys and everything, but they've been pretty smug about it. So
David Floyd's one of our SMU guys, so that's why he's asking the question to add context to it. Okay, Immaculate. Danielle's not here. I'll give you 3 minutes to tell everybody why that SMU thing maybe isn't what it seems like it might be.
Well, all right, we'll go into this quick. As folks may or may not know, Wednesday is the start of the NCAA convention. That's here in Phoenix. It's the one time a year they meet and they vote on a ton of stuff. And right now, I think this one might be one of the most important ones that we've had in years. If this is going to be where we start to see all the talking points, all the moves, things are going to be happening to change the NCAA or do whatever they're going to do. When I see that comment come out days before that, it tells me I think someone's pressuring someone to vote the right way on something, because that's not really just a threat on SMU. That's a threat on the entire G5, especially any school that has any aims at all of possibly coming up to a power conference. They're saying, act right, or your future dreams of coming up and making a whole lot more money, it won't net you anything. So, can they do that? They would have to get that voted by the board. And the AAC president, who is now the member on the board, it is no longer the SMU president, by the way. They've been replaced with the Tulane president. So if you think Tulane's not looking at possibly wanting to come up into, like, say, the ACC or whatever in the future, that's doubtful. So I don't think they get the votes for it. I think it's just a pressure move. So we'll see.
This is the article. I just posted the link in the comment section. We encourage everybody to go out and read it. It was definitely thought-provoking. There's different angles you could take it. I wanted to make sure that when we saw something like this pop up, everybody needs to know that we try to cover all sides of these things, and frequently we disagree. This is one where Immaculate and I disagree, but there's also coverage that we've had that makes it look really slighted against SMU. So I'm just trying to be fair and let everybody know we're going to cover this stuff. We're going to give it some range and breadth to talk about. It just can't be tonight. So anything else before I move off this, guys?
Okay. Nah, it's not the big deal.
All right. Let me try to get a couple more comments in while I'm waiting for Danielle. Let's see here. Immaculate, isn't funny how ESPN ACC opt-out decision in 2025 coincides with the new CFP contract. ESPN is saving cash for the college football playoff. And before you answer that, Immaculate, I would just say that I think ESPN is in real trouble of losing access to the college football playoff. They might buy Fox and Amazon, for instance, could buy the whole thing. So 2026 negotiation is a big deal. All right, go ahead, Immaculate.
Oh, well, I mean, anyone's open to this one. I think this is interesting for anyone to talk about this.
He
But yeah,
targeted it to you.
I know.
So that,
And I responded to him out there, and I agreed. I mean, some of the timing of this is very interesting. It makes you kind of wonder, who brought this in. Like initially, I would have thought Jim Phillips would have, in order to try, like ESPN maybe in 21 was thinking about, saying, hey, we're going to have to drop this. Or they were thinking that was probably going to be the case. And so he, pushes it forward to give them a little bit more time so they can try and make it look more valuable or whatever. But this, like what he's saying, maybe ESPN asked for this all on their own just to make things line up. I don't know. It's thrown such a wrinkle in this that it's taken a little time to kind of figure out where exactly their ploy or their strategy is to go with this.
Anybody else have comments on that? College football playoff 2025-26 negotiation. And the effect it would have on the ACC. Nobody else has a comment or suggestion on that? I'm surprised.
I mean, it's just the dates kind of line up, and if ESPN didn't want to basically agree to additional payouts past, because they don't know what's going to happen here, so they postpone that decision. It all lines up. Whether it's all conspiracy or not, I don't know, but it lines up nice for Florida State.
I would agree with that.
Yep.
Another comment here from Caden's dad, another one of our members. If the Big Ten truly wants to get into the Southeast, then they would take Florida State, Miami, Georgia Tech. If they just take Florida State and Miami, it's not being in the SEC. It's just being in Florida, but Florida is like a region by itself. I mean, isn't it the number 1 or number 2 recruiting ground for football?
Yep, Texas, Florida, and California.
California.
Big 3.
Yeah,
But also-
and let's be honest. Florida State, media bleed from Florida State get you into Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and even parts of Louisiana. Believe it or not, the media bleed from the Florida State Tallahassee stations.
Yeah, and that's Tallahassee is pretty much like South Georgia more than it is Florida, right? There are no palm trees in Tallahassee, right? I mean, there might be in somebody's yard, but that's not where palm trees, grow. It's more like the South than most parts of Florida. So I agree with this statement to a degree. I think that the Big would really like to get South Carolina, the state, Georgia, the state, and Florida, the state. And if they can get North Carolina as well, great. Because then you really have, like we were saying, who are the partners? Because eventually you want to have some teams kind of in your region. If you can get a team, if you can get a school from those 3 states or those 4 states, then you're really cooking.
Very fair. I made a mistake. I said David was an SMU guy. I was thinking of Charles. So I'm sorry about that. It was my fault. David, I apologize. All right, here we go. We're going to bring in Danielle. How you doing, Danielle?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. It's a Friday. We appreciate you being here.
Oh, my pleasure. It's been a week.
Yeah, right. And I think we'll do this more. You've been very good to come on the show, and I really appreciate you being part of this. Let me do some introductions. I've got Wild Ute right there, and then right next to him is Immaculate, and then Vince, and then Moen is down there, Rockstar-esque. Does anybody have any questions for Danielle? She's a Florida State. Are you Florida State grad?
Yes, I
Florida
got
State
my
grad.
undergraduate and law degree from Florida State. Yes.
Okay, so why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Danielle Kelly. I'm actually a meteorologist too. So I do sports sometimes and weather forecasts for 2 radio stations here in Tallahassee, Real Talk 93.3 and Wave 94 here. And I've been a contract lawyer pretty much. I was a prosecutor beginning out. Goodness gracious, I'll be licensed 20 years this year. But I was a prosecutor starting out and then went into civil law, handled a lot of class actions, big complex cases, stuff like that. So I've kind of been doing this for a while.
No kidding.
Well, we appreciate you being here. Does anybody have any questions for her?
So Danielle, you mentioned that you have experience and you practice contract law, and you
Mhm.
work in Tallahassee, and you
I
went
do.
to Florida State.
Yes. I do.
Sounds like you
It
are
all
the person to
aligns.
talk to.
The
It all
dots.
aligns.
That's very true. Moen or Immaculate, any
Hmm.
questions?
Yeah, a lot of questions actually. I don't know how much time we have, but I mean, I've seen on Twitter and some of your points and takes, and clearly you are paying a lot of attention to this situation with Florida State. And with your background, I'm just going to cut to the chase with it. What do you see as Florida State's odds?
I think, and I know I've brought this up before, I think the complaint is very well written. And I think Florida State put absolutely everything they could in there to ensure odds of success. Not only, it's kind of a complaint where you read it and you see, okay, even if you find a contract, then there's a breach here, there, fiduciary duty, breach of contract claims, all kinds of stuff. And then we're also trying to declare it invalid based on contract offenses, unconscionability, violation of public policy, these kind of things. I think Florida State threw everything they could in there, and I think it's factually based and sound. I like our odds. I do. And I'm not just saying, I'm speaking impartially as a lawyer too. Because when somebody comes to my office with a big contract claim, I don't get to say, are you a Gator or Cane? I don't get to do this. But, I have to look at it impartially. And I think Florida State and Greenberg Traurig is one of the most prestige firms you will ever know. So they've done a great job.
So Danielle, as far as like the contract breach for a layman, right, that's not in the legal space at all, how would you kind of explain what the contract breach is about for the everyday person that's not in the courts?
Oh, this is multifaceted because we've alleged breach of fiduciary duty. We've talked a lot. I know everybody has about the unilateral extension by Jim Phillips on the ESPN deal. That in those situations, when you sign contracts, the words are still living and active in them. You have a duty to do things to my benefit, just like I do to you. And we held up our end of the bargain. They did not. They did not in any capacity. So we were damaged. There's your fiduciary duty. Other breaches, the extension, the whole unilateral deal. In contracts, we deal with what's called consideration. That binds a contract. And what consideration is you get something of value and I get something of value. If one of us is not, then it's over. And it's one of these situations, and I always explain it like this. If I go in your store and I want to buy a hairbrush, you hand me the hairbrush, I hand you my money. And that's a bargain for exchange. You got something of value, I got something of value. However, if you're charging me $75 for that hairbrush because I have no option, and you've made sure I have no option to go anywhere else, and the store, and I have to pay $75 for it, and the store next door is only charging $5, then we have a problem because we're getting into the situation where there's no consideration for the things that they have unilaterally signed Florida State up for. Long answer.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Those are great questions, Danielle. Sorry, I hope you don't feel like you're like on a witness stand or something.
We're all just like she has all the knowledge on this. We're just intensely listening.
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
You're an attorney. You're a meteorologist. You're in the media. You make pretty good income, I'm sure. Have you ever bought anybody a brand new Lexus for Christmas or been gifted a brand new Lexus for Christmas?
I don't even touch Lexus. No, I don't even have a Lexus.
Have you ever met somebody who has?
Stop it. Moen, stop.
But I see where he's going. That's pretty funny.
So
he's got a thing with vehicle commercials during the holiday season on TV.
Yeah, we've got an ongoing thing through the holidays with people buying cars for Christmas. Yeah. Anyway.
Got you. All right.
So I'm going to bring up the article. I'm going to bring this up here. And if you guys are okay, I'm just going to make us disappear because I want to actually highlight the article for a second. So did you get a chance to read this article today in the Tampa Bay Times, Danielle?
I did not read the article. I saw the press release from the Attorney General yesterday, though.
And I think that's what was distributed on Twitter. That's right.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's where we got it from. That just the headline. What can you tell us about that headline by itself? That how much authority does the Florida State AG have? This idea that there's conflicting jurisdiction is really the heart of the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is that it's, I mean, jurisdiction's a huge issue with this, obviously. And I know people are going to make light of the fact, that ACC filed first and us and, all this stuff. But she had already on her own, she is a sworn official in the state of Florida, elected by the state of Florida, and she has an obligation to uphold Florida law and do these kind of investigations that she's doing. She had already issued, a demand letter on antitrust violations to the college football playoff. And now Florida State has filed suit against the ACC. When you read the GOR and they continually reference, and let's clarify, because a lot of people see the GOR online and there's some confusion as to whether or not we have these contracts or not. To be clear, and if memory serves, I believe it was a reporter in North Carolina that actually obtained the copy we see online of the GOR by doing a public records request. I believe several other media outlets were able to get it as well. I know, I think the Osceola did here, and I think the Atlantic did. And they have that. The issue is we don't have the executed copy. And if you read the GOR, it continually references other agreements to serve as the consideration. Go back for the bargain for exchange. They're referencing the ESPN agreement in the GOR as the consideration for that contract. So we have to go outside of the GOR and read all these other agreements as well. It's like a multifaceted contract, if that makes sense. I don't like to use legalese kind of stuff, but the ESPN agreement with the ACC, the actual executed copies, the GOR you'll see online often doesn't have signatures. Signatures matter. I can tell you that as somebody who has been in the middle of the mortgage crisis with the robo signing documents and stuff like that. Signatures matter. And Florida State has a right to have a copy of all the contracts we are a part of. And apparently it's like the Declaration of Independence, Constitution at the National Archives. You got to go up there and they got to watch you while you're reading it. And it's just a mess. And it's wrong, because the basis of what they're doing is filing a declaratory judgment to uphold the GOR, which references the ESPN agreement and the ACC Constitution and all these other things. All these signed agreements, and there's 5 million of them, it feels like. But all these signed agreements, we have a right to have a copy of all of them. There are lawsuits pending right now. And as you know, that's not even an issue for discovery, which we will get into later. The private stuff, the emails and stuff we can ask for in lawsuits. That's not even getting into that. These are just public records. And Florida is wide open on public records. And we're a public university.
So we had Bob Thompson on our show last week, and he was as shocked as everybody was about this idea of 2025 and 2027, and it's ESPN's option, not the ACC's option. In that discussion, he actually said that he'd seen this before with media contracts. Now, he was the president of Fox Sports. He was the founder of the Big Ten Network. So that part of it, it's like, it's a hassle, but the schools have ways to get that information besides just going and holding the document in their hands. But what you're saying is the whole thing, the restriction on access, the denial of requests for documents, the whole thing put together actually has the biggest argument. Instead of taking it in pieces, you present it as a whole.
Yeah, exactly. You present it as a whole. And I mean, because you can't read, if you and I do a contract and it's a bargain for exchange, and I'm saying, okay, but the value to both parties is this other agreement that we already signed, then you're going to read them all as a whole. You have to. That's just contract law. And universities do have things in their hands, but it's got to be bad enough to have the Attorney General and Florida State both complaining about the same issue that we don't.
Okay.
So,
Anybody else have, before I ask another question, you guys go ahead.
So is it certain that the ESPN contract is going to be provided?
I don't think there's any way out of it at this point.
No.
Not only is the Attorney General filed a public records request, and apparently North Carolina does have, I mean, they have answered public records requests to some degree, I guess, if they've turned over what we're seeing online claiming is the GOR. Not only does she have a right as the Attorney General elected state of Florida and has a right to those documents, Florida State does as well, because they are suing. Their basis of suing is to have the grant of rights declared enforceable. And so that would be based on these contracts. How we don't have fully executed copies of these contracts is beyond me. And if you notice, she's getting involved with that now after the lawsuits have already been filed. So there's obviously a problem.
So I got to ask this, Danielle. So is there going to be, say that the Attorney General of Florida State win the case and the grant of rights is voided? Is that going to blow up all grant of rights everywhere in college football? Like all agreements that have a grant of rights, is this a precedent to nullifying all of those?
I haven't seen other schools' grant of rights, but ours is so, what was the word we keep using in the complaint? FSU kept draconian. That's the word.
Right.
Right.
Ours is so bad that it will set precedent, but I think for other schools, to bust theirs, they will have to prove that theirs was as bad as ours, and that's going to be really hard to do because ours is about as bad as you get, and
Right.
hence the unconscionable claim in the contract.
Immaculate.
Yeah, we see something thrown around a lot in chat circles and whatnot, and that's be a term that's sovereign immunity. Now, I didn't put a whole lot into that previously, but I thought it was interesting. But now that we're seeing so much action from the AG on this, does this start to get serious? Or is that just something that doesn't really come into play here, you think?
Sovereign immunity is an issue, and I really have never dealt with it in a public university sense, but it definitely applies. I've dealt with it more so lawsuits against state agencies, and then you want to be, there's caps, and you have, requirements on where you can and can't sue, all those things. You would have to get around to sue state actors, as we call them, under Section 1983 federal claims. This is a little different because it's a public university. I think Florida has jurisdiction ultimately. I think the Attorney General, she has her own thing going anyway. It's aside from us. I just think that she's asking for information that will be valuable to our suit. So sovereign immunity isn't my biggest issue on this. I think ultimately we're going to end up in Florida federal or state court.
Sure.
Then,
but if
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. If the ACC, or let's say FSU, was to just pull out and leave, and they're trying to take their natural broadcasting rights with them, which are theirs inherently and only given away by contract, the ACC would have to sue them in order to make good on that grant of rights contract. And isn't that then when that might come into play? Like, if there's some level of sovereign immunity defending them from being sued.
Absolutely. That is when that will come into play, because what we have right now is Florida State filing a declaratory judgment saying, we just want you to say this isn't enforceable. And then the ACC in North Carolina saying, we just want you to say it is.
Right.
But once you get into that, because they actually did sue Maryland when Maryland left before all this mess started, and we got penalized with the grant of rights, because of Maryland. That was their way to keep the rest of us in line. So once you get into that, and with those kind of damages and them actually coming after that money the way they will, because I don't see Florida State balking and walking down from this, even if they say the grant of rights is enforceable. I think there's going to be a lot of litigation.
And I remember that time when that happened. There was two schools that voted against the exit fee. One was Maryland and one was Florida State. So with that public vote against it, I mean, we're seeing North Carolina and them doing that on a different level with another public vote. So, I mean, that might be part of this as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if when you read the complaint, the FSU makes complete light of the things that were admitted in the Maryland lawsuit by the ACC. They've already admitted it was a penalty. They've already admitted that the ACC Constitution is a contract. They've admitted a lot of fun stuff. So the worst thing they could do, and they settled for less in that case.
Yep.
They just punish the rest of us with the GOR. I don't think that's going to fly. We don't get to pay for your bad faith and your bad dealings.
Gotcha.
So last night, we were on that show. We were on Vince's show, and Doug, the lawyer. What's Doug's last name? I can't remember.
Rohan.
Rohan.
Love him.
He's a
Awesome.
stud too. And Florida State, if they have you guys, you and Doug behind them, I don't see how they can lose. But one of the things that we'd never heard of came up, this Hobson's choice. He brought up this Hobson's choice. Can you tell everybody what that means? Because I think last night was the first time we'd ever heard that.
It means you don't really have a choice. That's what it means. Like I said, contracts have to be a bargain for exchange. It can't be me, putting a gun to your head and saying you must sign this, or doing things in bad faith behind your back. It means Florida State was put in a situation where they had to agree to things because they had no way out. It really means you had no choice. So.
Anybody want to follow up on that? I found that really interesting that they actually had a term for it.
Yeah.
It's actually in the complaint. There's a whole section in the complaint about it.
That's crazy.
So Danielle, where I guess like from an outsider's point of view, where did Florida State have no choice? Like where did they get forced into signing something? What aspect of this?
Well, look, the exit fee, and I think it was paragraph 66. I'd have to get back and look. The 240% to penalize the rest. By the time we got to the point, we wouldn't have been able to afford to leave on the exit fee stuff anyway. And then they start this grant of rights, and we got trapped. So we had to, then they're like, well, we'll give you the ACC network. I'm not even going to get into that, but just, it was one of those things where Florida State couldn't afford to leave. So we have to kind of find, because they've been doing things in bad faith, and they have been unconscionable with their contracts and their dealings and their personal things they've done as well. We had no choice but to just kind of ride along and hope for the best. And that's no way to have a contract. That is not how contract law works.
And anybody else want to ask about that?
One quick one, and maybe for the benefit of our viewers here. Some people think that contracts don't get broken that often, that this doesn't happen that often. When they say you sign a contract, you're part of it. Could you let us know, since you have firsthand dealings with this, how, in loose terms, how often do you see contracts get broken legally via court? I mean, this is a pretty big business, so this isn't unheard of, like for people who think that this is kind of a strange happening.
And no, it's not. And there's a whole, there's Twitter lawyer university these days, but, there's a whole bunch of people that seem to think contracts are ironclad and can't be broken. If that was true, I wouldn't have a job and we wouldn't have a lot of lawsuits. No. Nothing's ironclad. I can tell you, and because this is unprecedented, because this is the first school that has sued on a GOR, I can tell you part of my career was dealing with a very well-known standard contract when the housing market crashed, the mortgage contract, the one you all sign when you go to closing, the mortgage and the note, they all look the same no matter where you are. That's as ironclad as you get. However, the banks took money, the top five too big to fail banks took a government bailout and became part of the HAMP program and were skirting the rules and got caught doing it. And they were doing things in bad faith, predatory lending, those kind of things. And those lawsuits were won, even on a standard contract, because it was modified and things were being done in bad faith. Lawyers work in precedent. I can analogize. I can see the analogy between what's going on now and what happened there. So no contract is unbeatable. None. Gotcha. Not when you're operating the way the ACC has.
Appreciate that.
I'm going to pause right here. I'm going to turn some time over to Moen.
Yeah, Danielle, what would be there? Is there any? What if the ACC in North Carolina just says no, we're not giving you any documents? What can the Attorney General from Florida do? Does she take it up to a federal circuit court?
File for sanctions, anything. She has, and I used to be an extern there. She has complete anything at her disposal. Criminal investigations, civil investigations, whatever she wants to do. Basically, she file for sanctions and make them pay. and she's already done a great enough job, alleging the antitrust on another aspect beyond this. And I still don't know to this day, and I'm sorry for that, whether or not the college football playoff even answered her demand letter. It feels like they are blowing off requests, not for much longer. Then eventually you'll file and take it up in court, and somebody's going to pay. Somebody's going to pay big. You don't violate public records laws. Let's just put it that way. It's not a good thing to do.
I want to shout out 5 members, and then Moen can tell you how they came about. Brandon Unruh, Kyle Visser, Nathan Campbell, Jason Ritchie, and Clint Moses have all been gifted memberships to the Big 12 Mafia show. Go ahead, Moen.
Yeah, that was brought about because Nathan told me to do that. So everybody thank Nathan in the chat if you received one of those memberships, because Nathan told me to do it behind the scenes.
I am the boss.
Because he's the boss, man. He's the
boss.
capo de tutti capo. If you still haven't opted in yet, please do opt in to set the gift settings to where you automatically be entered into those.
Really quick, I want to catch this super chat from John D, $4.99. Thank you very much, John, for being around. I've loved interacting with you on Twitter. He says, enjoy the show. Hopefully the ACC refs don't follow the norm and try to make the game about them. Best of luck, University of Washington. Go Noles. And then are those Hatchet, right? That's doing this. Is that what that means?
Yeah.
It's a spear, pretty much.
So tell everybody what's going on with the ACC refs.
I mean, what's not going on with them? If you want to see some comedy, just do some YouTube searches for refs moving the ball, moving a dead ball. Look for giving them the business.
I was about to say Ron Cherry.
I mean, we all complain about refs, right? We all do. But the ACC refs are kind of on a whole nother level.
Sounds like the Pac-12 refs with targeting penalties.
Oh, brother. Don't
Rough.
get me started on targeting in the Big 12 either. MH5, a good comment here, says, will FSU settle? I'm going to talk to both FSU people here. That question is to both you, Danielle, and Vince. But how much do we think they will ultimately pay? Everybody can give that number. And what year do we think they get out? So, Danielle, I'm going to make you first.
We're not paying $500 million. I can tell you that right now. We're already saying the GOR is invalid. So get that number out of everybody's head. We would be dealing with the withdrawal penalty stuff. Obviously, I think we probably will. I mean, they settled with Maryland. I think eventually, because here's the issue: if we get into discovery and we start asking for emails and we start asking for depositions and we start sending subpoenas and all that stuff starts, then ESPN and the ACC are not going to have, a good time with that. So yes, eventually you just keep going forward. You can force them to the mat. They're going to want to settle, and it's not going to be it for anything anywhere where people are claiming the GOR is. I don't know ultimately how much. It would be exit fee downward to me.
So make a guess.
I could see maybe, 100 to 200 million, somewhere in there. Maybe that's speculation. It may be so egregious that we pay a lot less. There's a lot more to find out when we get to the discovery.
Right. All right, Vince.
Yeah, I think they're going to settle too. And I think it's going to be dependent on if the grant of rights has any kind of teeth to it at all. I think you're going to look at maybe 200 million or so. But if it really doesn't, and Florida State wants to take it to the mat, they could and force the issue and get to a point where it's a number that Florida State wants. And at that point, where I'm thinking less than 100 million, less than the exit fee.
Same. Completely agree.
Could they get it to zero?
I'm looking for numbers,
sure.
Vince. Okay.
Yeah. Could they get it to zero? Yes. But do you want to go through all of that to get it to zero? That's the question. Florida State wants to get out, and I think there is a number probably that they're thinking about that's worth it.
Amen.
let's say if you want a number from me, I'd say 75 million.
Okay. All right, Moen.
I'm sticking at 175 million. I think they
Okay.
want to get it done as quick as possible. Take the money and run, ACC.
Just like the Price is Right. $0.
$1.
All right,
$1.
Immaculate.
I've said one particular number, and I'll continue to say it, and it's 50 to 100 million. I think folks are going to be maybe surprised by what happens afterwards. Won't go into that now. But I mean, it's going to be, if 10 schools leave and it's at 100 million, that's $1 billion of value coming into that conference over a certain amount of time. If it's going to happen, it all needs to happen at once. You don't want them trickling out, because then some of that value is going to schools that are going to leave with that later on. So I think it's going to be a lower price than people think, and I think it's going to be because they just want to get everyone out at one time and then sit on their cash while they figure out what they're going to do next.
Keep in mind,
Right.
and I hate to jump in here, but keep in mind that as far as I understand it, the media agreement has to do with the number of schools, not who the schools are.
Yes.
So when the ACC, when NC State turned Benedict Arnold and allowed SMU, Cal, and Stanford into the league, that was a survival mechanism for the conference, because I think they have to have a certain number of teams. There are no teams, or there are no schools that are considered key schools. So as long as the ACC has the right amount of teams, the amount of money ESPN pays them shouldn't change.
I completely agree. I was actually going through, because I have the complaint beside me, trying to find where that is discussed. Exactly what you said. That vote becomes important later on. So, I mean, you're exactly right. I 150% agree. And I think Florida State's pretty much alleging that. And I think it's like somewhere around paragraph 63. It's somewhere. It's, I've got everything.
That's all right.
You don't have it memorized?
Not yet. I'm getting there. One more show, I should be there.
All right, Immaculate. You got your
Devil's
hand up. You're
devil's
jumping through
advocate
this
time.
thing.
We have
Go
our
ahead.
contract lawyer here. Gonna have to ask you now to work for ESPN.
Ooh.
So I know this is tough, but so say this starts to happen and schools start to leave, and the ACC has their backfills to stay at 15. If you're ESPN, are you able to then go into court and say, when we signed that deal, it was with no intention that it would be for this many fills, that it would be for like maybe 1 or 2 replacements? If it starts being 3 and 6, that many replacements coming from, say, like the AAC or whatever, can they argue that that is not fair and equal value, and that they are not beholden to that, despite there maybe being 15 teams, 15 schools?
Not only can they probably will.
That's been my point. But you being the professional, I just was kind of curious what you had to say.
No, I think that's exactly what they would argue. We didn't sign up because, as we know, ESPN. Well, I have to be their lawyer. We're already having financial difficulty. Disney's upset with us. We just signed a really big deal with the SEC network, so we don't really want to deal with this side person, for lack of a better term, anymore. We're gonna, hedge our bets, and this was not fair to us. Kind of a reverse argument,
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I would see that.
Hey,
Is
and
there-
they're already
you-
not guaranteed
you-
to pay any money past 2027 anyway. So it's a perfect opportunity for them to get out of Dodge.
Mhm.
Is there
All
any
right,
chance that the ESPN agreement actually lists out Florida State and the names of the original 15 schools, including Notre Dame, of the ACC? So it's a little bit more specific rather than nebulous as far as what schools are involved here.
The grant of rights lists them and keeps referring to the ESPN agreement. I'll be the first to tell you, I have not seen the fully executed ESPN ACC agreement. I don't think anybody has. I think that serves as consideration for the GOR. A lot of people have been confused. Like, well, I can find the GOR online. The GOR cites the ESPN agreement as the consideration that binds that contract, and that's the contract that you don't have.
I would think that ESPN's trying to protect their rear ends by actually listing out, hey, Florida State is an essential part of this contract, and actually putting them into the ESPN side of the agreement that we haven't seen yet. Is that
Yeah.
is that potentially there?
It's potentially there. Yeah, it is. So we will find. I think ESPN doesn't want to get involved with all this, and I think like you guys were talking about settling and just getting out of this. I think there will be pressure to just, hey ACC. I don't know what those negotiations would look like between them, but look, just let them go. Just let them go. Eventually, that would get to that point.
What number do you think that you're going to get out with?
$72 million clean.
Bam! Look at that. He's
You
specific.
know why? Here's the logic behind it. No grant of rights, funds. Exit fees approximately 150 said to be. So 60% of the exit fee gets you 72 million clean.
I like that.
That's my guy right there.
And like then you think like they get out for 72 million and everyone starts exiting for 72 million. Really, that's not a lot of money for 12 schools at the end of the day. I mean, you could divide that up. That's not going to feed you for multiple years or anything. So the ACC is in big trouble.
And I think that's why they're fighting so hard right now. I mean, when Maryland left, it wasn't like it is now, where the pack has basically gone bye-bye and all this other stuff is going on. I think that they're fighting us as hard as they are is also about them fighting for their own survival.
It's Lord of the Flies right now. It's survival of the fittest. And the fight is to be in that top 3 at this point. ESPN wants the ACC to stick around because they're a cheap product. That doesn't cost them as much because of the media deal they have. So they have every incentive to keep the thing together. But on the flip side of that consideration piece, Florida State, Clemson, and maybe Miami could make an argument. Yeah, but you're devaluing the product so much that we're not going to get out of it what we really deserve. So I think that's really, really good. Let's see here. I already did that one. Here's a question from Jan Holk. He says, when FSU gets out, when can they start playing for other conference? 2025, right? Is that what we're looking at?
I say 25, just because the schedule for next year is already set. Ireland is set. That kind of stuff is set. I would say, I mean, FSU does have that allegation under one of the counts in the complaint that if this is deemed to be held invalid, we are out as of August of this year.
I saw that.
I keep forgetting it's January of last year. So, but I don't think that's going to change for next year's schedule. It's pretty much already set. We're getting into the time frame where the 25 schedule is getting set as well. So it would be new territory to be in, but I would say 25. That would be my guess.
Okay. Let me jump in here real quick. The longer it takes for the settlement to happen pushes the year, right? So if we get a settlement, by August, then I think 2025 is definitely possible. Because it's all about getting the schedules done.
Right.
But the longer it goes on, then you're pushing to 2026. And I'm not personally confident that the legal machine is going to move, quick enough for us to get. I want 2025. I want it.
Right.
But I think 2026 is probably when it's going to happen.
I never gave my estimate. I think it's going to be between 75 and 100 million. So I've been saying that for a while. Ute 72 has got me close. I'm over by $1 though, so I would lose on that whole game. But as we start to wind down here, because I wanted to talk about University of Washington here to close out the college football playoff. What do you guys? I'm going to give you this question, and I want everybody to answer it. It comes from Michigan versus the World, and he says, "What motivation does the ACC have to settle if their collapse is imminent anyhow?" Start with you, Ute.
Yeah, I don't think the ACC sees it that way. I think that they think it's going to survive, and so the logic behind settling is this is a hot mess right now, and you need to clean up the hot mess. And until Florida State's out, this hot mess is going to continue and get messier and messier. But I don't think the ACC, they're not done yet in their mind. If you're Jim Phillips, you're not done yet, and you have to plan on survival. So I don't think that he sees the collapse as imminent. We're outsiders looking at it from a different perspective, and we see it as in a different perspective. But as the leader of the ACC, I'm sure he thinks it's going to continue on even without Florida State.
Immaculate.
Well, you guys know I think that they actually do have a bit of a plan there, so I don't think it's imminent in any regard. I see that trio of Notre Dame, Stanford, and Duke, and I think they're up to something. So that's why I say for me, it's going to entirely depend upon what that exit price is at. Because whatever Florida State gets, that is going to be the precedent for others. And so if it's a low price, it is meant to allow schools to leave. And if it's a higher price, then it's meant to keep them from leaving. So that's really where I'm looking at. It's kind of hard to say, but I don't actually think the ACC is going anywhere.
Moen.
Yeah, it's always better to be a ragged lion than an impeccable flea. I think the ACC views themselves as a ragged lion in this. The rest of us view them as an impeccable flea. Yeah, that's all.
What?
Hey, you didn't get that analogy? It's better to be a ragged lion than an impeccable flea. If Florida State, Clemson, and all these schools leave, the ACC still views itself as a lion. The rest of us view it as a flea.
Yeah.
Right. I got you. I understand what you're saying. Vince.
Once the ACC figured out that basketball wasn't the revenue driving sport that they wanted it to be, which was already about 12 years too late or longer, they've been in survival mode ever since. And whether that's, making sure your son is the head of the network that owns all the third tier rights, or bringing in 3 schools that can hopefully replace some schools that are going to leave. The league is going to survive, but it's not going to be considered a power league. It's going to be made up of smaller schools. And I think as a conference, I think probably they're okay with that. I mean, they're going to fight it, but I think eventually they're going to be happy with the Wake Forest and the Syracuses and the Boston Colleges all, making the money they make, and they're all happy about it. So I think it will survive.
Mo, and I sent you a DM in private chat if you get to it. If you don't have time, that's cool. But all right, go ahead.
I was just going to say the ironic part about what Vince just said about basketball is that by the time this all plays out and gets worked out, basketball might actually be on the come up once they start to use NIL and payments for students. As some of those basketball stars actually start to stick around for more than a single year, the value of basketball could go up again. But he's right. I mean, that the ACC was a big play on basketball, and it didn't work out.
All right, Danielle, you get to say it. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, with all of you, I think they're cocky enough to think they're going to survive, and I think they're behind the scenes enough on stuff, like I said, that they're going to survive. I think it will. I think it kind of has to. I don't know. Everybody had this, conspiracy theory when the Pac collapsed that we were moving to a 2-conference system. It was going to be the Big and the SEC. I don't think the Big 12 fought back and did what they had to do. The ACC is completely inept at anything the Big 12 did. So that's never happening here. So I think they survive, but like Vince said, smaller schools, it's not going to be anywhere where it was.
I've been saying since last year when USC and UCLA left that in my opinion, it would end up with the 3 big conferences and then there'd be a +1. And whether it's the elite educational Ivy League athletic conference that Immaculate's talked about, or if it's a smaller collection of private schools only, I do believe that it's going to end up being 3+1. That's my opinion.
Sounds good. I think that's where I was going with that too. That's perfect.
All right. Well, we're going to quit with Florida State. We got a few minutes here. I wanted to preview the college football playoff game happening this weekend. That'll actually be on Monday. So everybody here is a master picker. We're going to call you guys all professionals. And I'm having you sit in Las Vegas at the MGM, and you're putting up stats, and you want to know who you want to drive people to either bet for Washington or Michigan. What do you guys think the odds are that either one wins? And I'll start with mine. I think University of Washington should be a 2-1 favorite.
That's quite the favorite.
They're the most motivated, and I think Penix is Superman right now. he could play for Seattle, and they would have a better chance winning this weekend than the Huskies do.
I think that Michigan is the betting favorite for this game. I think it makes sense that Michigan would be the favorite in Vegas or anything else. I think if you wanted a stat line that's kind of juicy or tasty, I think Michael Penix for 333 passing yards is kind of a juicy one to play. Might get some betting on that. But I think the Michigan, based on the defense, I think that they're a clear favorite in this game.
Okay, Immaculate.
Well, what I'm saying to people is I'm looking at maybe the matchup that most folks don't look at to see who wins that. And what I'm thinking is the Michigan offensive line, not Washington's, but the Michigan offensive line versus Washington's defensive line. I think that's going to be the matchup that matters. So if folks really want to dive into something and compare and look, that's where I would go. Because if Michigan, with their two, in my opinion, All-American running backs, are able to just run at will, then I don't see why this doesn't end in a similar fashion as the Alabama game, simply because with Washington's offense, they kind of need to be able to get into a roll. And if Michigan is able to control the game with their running game and with the two running backs not get tired, I think Michigan has the advantage in that regard. If Washington starts this off lighting up real quick and Penix takes off, this is Washington's game.
Moen.
It's the odds are 5-3 for Michigan. I want Washington to win, and because I want Washington to win, I'm picking Michigan.
There you go. I like it. Vince.
Very scientific. I love it. Michigan and Alabama was quite the game, and it was a close game. And Alabama doesn't have a quarterback. And that was a close game. Washington does. That's a great one. I think Washington's going to win the game because I don't know that, and I think Michigan's defense is really good, but I don't know that they have had to contend with the offense they're about to see.
Very
I'd
good.
say the same thing about Washington's defense. I'd say on the opposite end, no one really in the pack has seen kind of defense like what Michigan can do. So, yeah, Michigan has not seen an offense like this. I mean, they saw receivers at Ohio State that were that good, but they did not have a quarterback pushing them. So, I don't know. It's tough. This one is a very difficult one to pick. I would probably lean Washington with these guys, but
all right,
that's
Danielle, we'll give you last word.
I like Washington, but I also agree. I mean, Michigan has one. Obviously their defense is amazing, but if Washington can get on a roll and that offense starts exploding, that could get ugly quick. I don't think Michigan has faced something of that caliber if that happens. So I go with Washington.
All right, we're going to let you guys sign out. Let's, for a few seconds here, Vince, tell everybody where to find your stuff and, what you're doing.
Absolutely. I'm a co-host of the Garnet and Old show. I'm the old part of the team. And you can find us you got it in the banner there at VC Noel and at Garnet_old on X. YouTube shows. We post to Facebook as well. So that's where you can find us. And by the way, I've enjoyed being part of your show, Nathan. And I really appreciate you coming on ours. So come on out. Florida State, we're fans. Our tagline is no inside info, no contacts, no problem. So we're not trying to break news. We're just trying to logically talk about the team and the passion that we have.
Nice.
Appreciate it. And Danielle.
I'm at D Kelly with an EY 21 on Twitter and on Facebook. And if you listen to Real Talk 93.3 or Wave 94 in Tallahassee, you may occasionally get to hear me. So, well, you'll hear my forecast regardless. But yeah, that's how you find me.
Well, I want to thank you both for being on the show. We're going to talk some SMU, so I'm going to let you guys go. But thanks so much for being here on a Friday night. I know it's usually date night. So both of you guys being here, I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so
much. I've enjoyed it.
Yes.
Okay, great. We'll do it again. We'll see you later. Guys.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
So, Bomber, I think going back to the college football championship game here. Okay.
Go ahead.
So while Michigan it makes sense why they're the favorite. The best player on the field is Michael Penix. And whenever you have the best player on the field, you've got a chance to win the football game. The way that the receivers play for Washington, they're so talented, they're so explosive that as far as picks, we didn't really make our technical picks or anything here, but I'm picking Washington to win this football game despite them being an underdog based on Penix. I mean, Penix has to have a massive game. McMillan and Odunze. I think that they're just going to deliver all day long, and they're going to beat Michigan by over 7 points here.
Very fair. Moen or Immaculate, what do you think?
As I was saying, I would lean Washington on this, but that's a tough pick. I think Michigan is also bringing something that Washington hasn't seen, and if they can control the ball on offense, as well as put pressure on Penix that he hasn't really seen. He did see some against Alabama, so that was probably helpful for him that he, saw pressure, moved just enough. I mean, he was great under pressure, actually. But this is going to be a battle of two teams that really haven't seen the other this year. So I would say this is a toss-up.
So you're not picking?
I like I said, I'm leaning Washington, but I mean, if I actually had to bet, I think I would probably not bet.
Not bet what?
Money. And this is
okay.
This is
You would choose. You have $1 million to bet. I've got a gun to your head. Pick a team.
I was like, can I pick NFL?
No, you can't.
All right. I guess if you got a gun to my head, I'd pick Washington.
Okay, that's what we're looking for. So
Nice.
They have the should have been Heisman Trophy winner on that team.
Right.
I'll say that.
Okay. And Moen?
Look, I know that there's no star on Michigan's team, but that defense is really strong, guys. I know that Washington's got the best offensive, or they won the award for best offensive line. I think that's where it's going to be won in the trenches. If that O-line can't stop Michigan from getting pressure, Penix will make mistakes.
Okay. On the flip side, it's not like J.J. McCarthy lit up the scoreboard last week.
Doesn't need to. He just needs to score enough points to win, which he did.
Okay. All right. Very fair. I've already said I think Washington is a double-digit winner.
I don't even think J.J. McCarthy is that important in this game. I think it's the Michigan offensive line and then Corum and who's the other running back, Moen, for Michigan?
Isn't it Corum?
It's Corum
Corum's
and
the lead. I want to say
Williams or
Haskins,
something?
but that was the old one.
no. Anyways, I'm embarrassed that I'm forgetting the name, but he's a better running back than most teams have as their starting running back.
Right.
And they're the combo of them means that they're just not getting tired. So if Michigan can just run all over them like they did with Alabama, it's going to be a tough game for Washington. Just to kind of get on a roll.
I said last week that I thought this potential game, right after Michigan won and Washington won, I said that I think this game might be right behind the Texas USC game in 2005 for being one of the best we've ever seen. I think there's a possibility here that we could really see something that you don't see very often in college football.
I hope so.
Pickles earlier, this is a comment from way long ago when we were talking about we were talking about ESPN. He says it was inevitable if Bama and Texas lost that the talking heads would say Georgia is better than Washington or Michigan.
Of course.
And that's what I've heard all week. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I told him even in response, I was like, welcome to being a successful football team. Anytime you're up at the top, there's going to be other people saying that you don't deserve to be there. It's just, it comes with the territory.
Agreed.
I think the truth is Georgia might be better than Michigan or Washington. I really
think
do.
Georgia is the best team in the country.
Seriously, Georgia could easily win the college football playoff if they would have gotten in. I think everyone would agree with that almost. I mean, look how talented those guys are across the board.
I think that we saw that they're not when they played Alabama, and I would not put any weight at all behind what they did to Florida State. One, just because who was playing, and two, because those kids did not give a damn. That game shouldn't have even existed. That was a travesty.
No, I had called Georgia as the best team after they lost to Alabama.
Yeah,
They
I mean,
still
Georgia
couldn't
was
play
on
the
like
Why?
a 3-year winning streak, and they lost
know.
at Bama by 3 points.
Right.
Like, I
Mhm.
mean, everyone has a slip up here and there, and
Yeah, no, I agree, but I mean, I don't think they looked good in that game, and I don't think Alabama looked good in winning. And so, and then we see what happened with Alabama against Michigan. I don't necessarily think Georgia this year was all that much better than Alabama. So I tend to think that Washington is just purely the best team right now. But I think Michigan, if they're on their game, they could beat anybody. That's my thoughts, is that Washington is the best team, but Michigan could beat anyone in a given day. So I would put Georgia's third.
A really quick, well, we have two choices here. Do you guys want to talk SMU for 20 minutes, or you want to sign off on a Friday?
I'm down, whatever one. If this chat wants us to keep going, or
all right, we're going to talk SMU. And if you're still with us, this is going to be interesting because this article that came out from Ross Dellinger really threw down some bombs about the way SMU's potentially going to get screwed from a lot of money. Let me get the article here prepped. By the way, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe on the YouTube channel and also follow all of us on Twitter. We are at the lead of this news whenever it breaks, and our shows are tip top about this stuff. So I encourage everybody to subscribe and then follow us on Twitter. All right. Oh, here we go. We have a super chat I want to get to first. Tony Lawson for $2. Thank you, Tony. Says only elite teams can three-peat. Yeah,
I wonder why Tony thinks that.
All right, here we go. Thank you, Tony, very much. So, I'm going to let you circle this back up again and catch everybody up as to what this article really said today.
Yeah, so this article is saying that at the meetings for next week, that the likely decision amongst the committee that is making the decisions behind the playoff distribution money that goes out, that the reading at least is that SMU is not going to be considered a P5 level school to get the same level of distribution as, say, a Utah or an Ohio State would get. So what that means really is that SMU, if they were a P5 level school, would get about $6 million in distributions from the college football playoff, whereas a G5 school would get approximately $1 million. So it's a $6 million expectation they thought that they were going to get in 2024, 2025. That appears to be going the other way. They're going to be getting a G5 level distribution or around $1 million. And as far as stepping into the ACC, SMU was expecting on that $6 million distribution to fund the program because they're not getting any media rights going forward from the ACC conference. So this was going to be part of their budgeting process. Kind of a summary, though, at the end of the day, I don't think it really matters that much to SMU. They've got serious boosters that are funding the program and have expectation to fund the program for the next 9 years. Really, we're talking a few years of about $5 million difference, maybe from what they were budgeting or anticipating. So this is probably about a $10 to $15 million impact at the end of the day, but still sucks for SMU. But the larger picture is any school that wants to move up to the P5, they might not have access to that same level of distribution that the current P5 schools get. So if a school moves from the G5 to the P5, they likely won't get the same amount of money for a period of time. So that's kind of the big idea here.
Immaculate, before I have you reply, I wanted to tell everybody I put the link to this Ross Dellinger article on Yahoo Sports in the comment section. I encourage everybody to go read it. Whenever we use other people's stuff, we give credit for it. So I definitely want to encourage everybody to go and read the entire article. But we're going to highlight all the highlights in that thing, and hopefully we cover it to our best ability. All right, Immaculate, what are your thoughts on it?
If you wouldn't mind, maybe scrolling down in this and
Sure.
finding the precise language used and how they present this. I think that's pretty important.
Do you know where that's at in the article?
I'm scanning.
Can you tell me where it's at? I'm happy to do that. Just tell me where it is and I'll highlight
I'm
it.
Scanning. I'm not sure where exactly. I think we haven't quite gotten there.
Are you not reading the article, or
I'm-
are you reading the
I'm
screen?
reading it right off the screen as you're doing it.
Oh, I thought you were looking at your own copy.
Nope, I'll look
All
it
right.
up though.
Let's see here.
To me, my initial reading upon it, and that's what I want to get into, is that this is not yet voted upon. This is not yet agreed upon. This is someone in there speaking with this media guy saying, this is something that we think we're going to do. Now, I think that means something, and I think that that's going to be brought up. But I also think that this is coming out just days before the convention coming up. So
here's the highlighted piece about the compare and contrast SMU and UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, and BYU. And it says, during negotiations to join the ACC, SMU committed to the conference under the impression that it would receive the full college football funds. That's what Ute was just talking about. According to comments made by SMU officials in August, there was recent precedent of such a guarantee. In 2022, the CFP voted to attribute full Power 5 payouts to the Big 12 schools. Now, again, that's UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, and BYU. All of them last year went from G5 to P5. And then it says, go ahead.
No, I was going to say there's a point where even Sankey says you have to have a unanimous vote to alter revenue distribution and diminish somebody else's revenue. That's it. So I've seen some people try and say that that's it, like, you know, it's a done deal. He's actually saying the opposite there. Like, it's going to take every single member of that board to vote for that to happen. It means you're talking about the 5 presidents that are the G5, presidents of, you know, does the Big 12 like that? Like, maybe they have to pull up a school at some point in time. This pretty much could end them pulling up anyone. Does the ACC vote for this? Whoever their president is, I think it's funny enough, I think it's the president of Clemson. So I think getting that unanimous vote on this is tough. And so then I have to look at this and say, what's the point of them saying this if there isn't actually a good chance of it happening? And when I see the convention coming up, I think that this is posturing. This is some politicizing.
This is the bottom line statement. I couldn't find that piece of the article you were talking about that Sankey had a quote. If you'll find that, I'll find that.
It's near the top. It's right above the picture of the SMU player with the helmet on.
Well, let me jump up to that then.
It's right above that. It's right there.
Right here?
Yep, you're looking at it right there.
Okay. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey pointed towards the CFP's longstanding rules around modifications to revenue policies. You have to have a unanimous vote to alter revenue distribution and diminish somebody else's revenue. That's it. So he's saying the power resides in a unanimous vote of the Power 10, right? It's 10 plus Notre Dame.
Yep, it's 11 votes
right?
It's 11 votes on the board. Yep.
I just want to make sure it stayed that way even after the Pac-12.
You know, the G5 still have an equal vote. I mean, they're still a conference. They're still.
No, I'm just talking about that conference itself. Do they still have a vote?
As long as they're still a conference with the NCAA, which they are for at least another 2 years, I don't believe they can take that away.
Okay, so we're going to assume the Pac-12 would vote against a policy like that because the only way they can reconstitute is if they get that full and fair payout. Because the Pac-12 is only going to be getting schools that are in the G5. San Diego State, Boise State at all. So if they don't want this, they would vote against this too, not just the ACC.
If you think that's like 8 schools or 6 to 8, 10 schools or more that they'd have to add, and you cut off 5 million, you know, for each of them, that's quite a chunk of change that your conference would not be bringing in. So I think it's near impossible to get the vote on that. And so that means, and they would know that. I mean, the numbers just don't line up. So they're trying to get some kind of reaction from that. They're trying to, you know, drum up something. I don't know, but I don't see good odds.
This is the bottom line statement at the end of the article. It says, if the CFP does deny SMU's Power 5 funding, the association sets a moratorium on additional revenue for those schools. Again, what Ute just said, elevating from Group of 5 to Power 5, a policy likely to even span into the new CFP contract starting in 2026. The move is yet another sign that college leaders are attempting to restrict Division I's highest body from further expansion, meaning the Power 3, we'll say Power 4 with ACC, which are AQ or autonomous leagues, they're going to try to restrict adding more people to that club. We've been talking about that. Ute and I started talking about that way back in April. That's the idea, that there's a consolidation that could potentially be happening if the Pac-12 blew up. There's a domino effect, and they don't want a Pac-2 to reconstitute with 10 more schools. They want to
No, because it would
restrict
dilute,
access.
dilute the
That's right.
payouts to everybody else.
And the ACC's thinking the exact same thing. That's why the vote to bring in SMU was so contentious at the ACC level, and why probably why one of the reasons Florida State's arguing against their own value. So I get what you're saying about the unanimous vote, Immaculate, but they've changed the rules all the time. They changed the rules to disenfranchise the Pac-12.
That was.
So
can I explain that?
The same thing. Sure, go ahead.
Because that got me too, and so I had to look into that and see how the hell did that pass. Well, the way CFP works, one of their very first bylaws, policies, or whatever, is that any rule by the NCAA, they by default follow that. Without a specific policy created to go against an NCAA rule, they specifically default to the NCAA. So what they did, the commissioners, because of that, officially defaulted to the NCAA rules for postseason participation in conference postseason. And at that, you need 8 schools. So what they did is they just went with the default setting, which is the NCAA rule. So they said we have to have 8 teams in order to participate in this postseason event because that's the NCAA rule. So that's how they got around having to have the board vote. As Per says, they went around the board vote. They didn't get the vote to vote on it.
It wasn't unanimous. They just
no,
changed
it
the
was
rule.
not. And we don't know what level of majority vote the management committee of commissioners needs, but I've never seen it anywhere said that they need unanimous. So I would assume they don't. So if it
doesn't need to be unanimous, then they could outvote them then.
But only on stuff that doesn't require a board vote, like something that's already NCAA policy. This is not. This would require, as Sankey says, a unanimous vote by the board. I mean, he's telling us that. So,
I found the money paragraphs that you was referencing. Making this situation especially painful for SMU is the unique arrangement that SMU made with the ACC. Heavily motivated to be in the Power 5 and backed by a plethora of mega boosters. Again, what you said, SMU agreed to accept no television revenue from the ACC in its first 9 years in the conference. That said, school officials expected to receive non-television ACC payouts that total at least 10 to 12 million, roughly half of which it thought would come from the CFP. Without the CFP money, SMU's first 9 years in the ACC may generate roughly half of what it earned in distribution while in the American Athletic Conference, which was $9 million.
Brutal.
You buy your way in and take away all your revenue enhancements for 9 years. And this is really this is the line you had to cross. I think they're going to find it was a bargain. It was not a good bargain for them.
If that happens.
Yeah, right. Of course.
Yeah.
I said if that happens, that would be really, really bad.
No, it would be terrible, and that's the fear factor of it. Like, right? Like, oh my God, could this happen to us? Like, could that happen to them in 2026? You know.
Okay.
One of the things I think that's up for vote at the convention right now is to give the A4 actual full or near full voting governance autonomy on their own. Right now, they're very limited. They do not have full governance. It's over some small student athlete issues. Like it allowed them to do the student athlete stipend and stuff like that. But in terms of full rule making and whatever for like Division I, they're nowhere near it. So I think, basically they need the whole FBS to probably work with them to get that. So
Moen,
do you know what this is?
we can't see it. Let me make you big.
That would be a violin.
That's the world's smallest violin.
Oh, okay.
Playing
All right.
for or SMU,
Okay.
who bought their way in and found out it might not be quite the deal of the century they thought it was. You know what? If they don't make that payout, just turn to their boosters to bail them out. I mean, boosters already bought their way in. Just let them pay
It's
for
not
that
about
too.
the money though, guys. The money is just a measurement. It's a tactical, or sorry, it's a functional tool. What we're actually talking about is denying access to the upper tiers of athletics.
It's a barrier to entry.
It
like
is.
You're saying, Bomber.
It is. That's exactly what it is.
It's
And
almost
so
like it's aimed at
SMU
other schools more than it's actually aimed at SMU. Like anyone
sure.
thinking about coming up, you got to think twice.
Yeah, and I think SMU, I've said this when it happened. I said, good for SMU. Do whatever you can to get in the door.
Mhm.
But as we've talked about consolidation, things are getting smaller and smaller. Access is being made harder. And I think that's what this is. So I don't think is it a PR hit? Does it make the SMU leadership look kind of off the rocker a little bit? Yeah, maybe. But they obviously knew that when they wrote the check.
Yeah, it wouldn't have impacted the decision to move to the ACC anyway.
Right.
This wasn't going to be a swing factor in that. So you've got some mud on your face and everything, but it wasn't a determinant.
I completely agree. Let's so we're 155. We got 4 minutes to wrap this up and get us to the end of the weekend. What do you guys think is going to go on? Actually, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. Let's just sign off. Ute, why don't you tell everybody what you're doing and maybe some of the stuff you might have coming up?
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to be working on some realignment short videos here. If anyone out there has any recommendations, I've got a lot of ideas, but if you've got recommendations, then shoot me a DM or ping me on Twitter and let me know what you want me to dig into. But I'm going to be doing a deep analysis on schools to the Big Ten, to the SEC, and the Big 12 to really see who fits where. And so excited to be working on that. So I'll be working on that over the next couple weeks and everything. Super excited for Monday. I want Washington to win so bad. I love Michael Penix. He's fun to watch, right? Like the guy is he's got the it factor. I can't wait to watch him in the pros. He's going to be a stud pro too. I think he's going to have the stuff to really move the ball against Michigan. And I'm hoping for a Huskies win.
Very good. Go Huskies. Moen.
I can't wait for.
Tell everybody.
I can't. Yes, Moen After Dark this Sunday at 8 p.m. But I can't wait for Tuesday morning when everybody on the East Coast is dragging ass because the national championship game doesn't go off the air till 1:15 a.m.
Nice.
Between all the commercials for cars and everything else.
That's fantastic. Moen After Dark, 8 Eastern, Sunday night. That'll be Immaculate and Moen, and they have guests all the time. So, I definitely want everybody to find that on this Big 12 Mafia channel, and it'll be here. And turn on your notifications. That's really important. Immaculate, what do you got coming up?
Just more of the same. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to next Wednesday. That's when that convention starts. That's some boring stuff. We're not watching like minute to minute, like maybe with an FSU Board of Trustees meeting, but there are going to be some things that come out of there that could possibly change everything that we're talking about. So very much looking forward to that. Be talking about a lot about that when that happens. Otherwise, till then, looking forward to watching this game. And like I said, Penix, like you're talking about him being so good. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of battle happens in the draft in order to get him first. I think that's going to be a story in itself because he is ready-made and wrapped up to start playing day one.
Is he a top 3 pick, Immaculate?
I think he's a top 1 pick. He's first.
Seriously, over May and
Penix?
over Williams?
Yeah.
Oh, I think so.
He's ready to go day one. Like he is better than, in my opinion, half the quarterbacks in the NFL right now.
Oh, I agree. Actually,
his movement in the pocket and his ability to fire off, and he doesn't overmove, and his precision is just, I don't know, it's sick. It's just silly to watch at times. Having played receiver and just the way he puts the ball. I don't.
Who he reminds me of?
I don't know how it's wild. Yeah.
When Kurt Warner came out in the NFL in 1999, the Rams, he came out of nowhere, right? He was playing arena football, and he's throwing BBs. I mean, they were like, there was no space that he couldn't fit a ball. It was the
Iowa
most amazing thing
Barnstormers.
I'd ever seen. Yeah,
Mhm.
Iowa Barnstormers. You
Mhm.
even know that he comes from
Oh,
your
yeah.
neck of the woods. But
Actually,
Kurt Warner.
his wife was married to my Spanish teacher. Fun fact, anyways.
Oh wow. Okay.
Or not
I
married.
think-
Not his wife was married. It was his
His
sister.
wife.
His
Okay.
sister was married to my Spanish teacher. So yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Knew all about that
Anyway,
guy coming up. But go ahead.
So Penix to me is a blend of Drew Brees and Kirk Cousins. Every time I see him play, he just reminds me of those two players, but blended. Like he's got a smooth pass like Drew Brees. But
very
then like he plays a
nuanced
little
in his
bit
movement.
like Kirk too in a lot of ways and how he moves. So
Yeah, I'm gonna go old school. I'm gonna say Warren Moon.
Oh, Warren Moon had a sweet throwing arm too. His motion
Also,
was.
who's the
beautiful.
guy for Philadelphia?
Donovan McNabb.
Yeah,
McNabb?
yeah. Nat McNabb in his prime. Oh yeah. People
I-
remember him when he kind of went downhill, but that guy had a cannon forearm and he could take a few hits off of people and still go. I mean, he's a little more mobile than McNabb, but that guy with that cannon, that's kind of who I think.
Very fair. Immaculate, are you going to be putting out any new shows in this coming year? Any new products that you want people to have their head and thinking about?
Some hand lotion. No, I'm just kidding. No, we're just doing the same thing. Like I said, this week, looking forward to it. I'm personally looking forward to also seeing if there is an announcement at this game that's been teased, but we don't know for sure if it's going to happen in terms of the college football game coming out. And
the NCAA 2025.
And we may or may not be looking at some plans with that, but we need to know a whole lot more about what's going to be in that game. So, anyone else interested in that, just know, teasing that out, that is an interest of at least one person on this board, if not more.
I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. We have our Matt Brown will be on the show Tuesday night, and he's all about that video game stuff. So we're gonna have a great weekend. We hope everybody stays safe, stay out of trouble, enjoy your weekend. Everybody needs to cheer for the Huskies. That's all I know. And any parting words before we go, guys?
Purple dogs.
Purple. I love it. All right, everybody. Have a great night, and we'll see you later.